Think it's been so interesting considering UT San Antonio just started their own podcast. And when I listen to clips of those episodes, I'm like, wow, I've done this before. I know kind of the ins and outs of what they're doing to some extent.
You've seen behind the curtain quite literally.
Yes, I have professors who ages range basically.
What are you trying to say, Maddie?
There's just a really big age gap. For this class, I really tried to get that title to be a nice headline and a hook, and then incorporate keywords in all of my descriptions about my podcast and what the listeners were about to hear.
What would you say to them?
I would say there's certainly a UTSA community on Reddit. I've seen a lot of other students posting their surveys.
Welcome to the show, Maddie Marroquin. Thanks for taking the time to do this. Let's start with what you were doing before you started your podcast.
Yes, of course. So I am currently a senior here at UTSA studying communications with a minor in marketing. Before starting my podcast, I took a couple classes from Professor McPherson and I really enjoyed them. My two classes I took were AI and personal branding, which really helped me grow my personal brand that is featured in this podcast. And then second was public relations, which gave me a little bit more insight into the communications aspect. Here on campus, I am in the marching band, so it keeps me pretty busy, but I love attending all the football games and other events we have. Also in the university, I do have a job on campus. I work for UTSA Campus Services, which also kind of stems from my podcast. I'm on the communications and marketing team, so I help market our parking permits, meal plans, transportation, and all that kind of jazz.
So you have jobs already going that a lot of people want to be in those kinds of same disciplines. You have the kind of career trajectory already going to where your internships are preparing you for that digital communication degree path.
Yes, for sure. I definitely do. And I found my job on Handshake, which is really a great resource that I learned about.
Awesome. Well, let's start with that persona part. Who was your podcast developed for? And tell us a bit about your podcast too.
So my podcast actually stems from personal experience, coming to college, being a little bit scared, not knowing where to go, what resources to find, and hearing stories from other people in similar situations. I saw kind of like a trend. So I wanted my podcast to take some of my skills, which are marketing, communications, social media, all that kind of fun stuff, and my job, which is about resources and helping students, and kind of combine the two to market towards UTSA students, staff, employers, even alumni who might be coming back, returning to grad school, or any of those kinds of situations.
And I'm curious, since you already took the AI and personal branding course, did this connect to your personal brand? And if so, how?
I would say my personal brand is a media brand. So if anything, it added to my portfolio for my audience to say she has a lot of experience in a lot of different diverse areas. So it wasn't directly related to it, but it enhanced it for sure.
And we know that podcasting is a function of PR too. So could you connect the podcasting course to your PR course too?
Yes, I definitely can.
Awesome. So your persona, did you have any challenges building the persona?
It was kind of a large persona because you have so many different age ranges, from students who start college at like 18 to professors who ages range basically.
What are you trying to say, Maddie?
There's just a really big age gap, and that's sometimes hard to identify in an audience with that kind of scope. So trying to find topics that could benefit everyone who may be listening.
So no challenges then. You didn't have any trouble setting up interviews or getting survey responses?
Survey responses, no. I utilized my social media platforms personally, which I already had a kind of big following. And with my presence here, I have almost 2,000 followers. Just my account isn't.
So not everyone can do that for their survey. Not everyone can ask their 2,000 followers. You already were building that personal brand before you took the podcasting course.
Right. And with my job here on campus, I already have kind of like a presence. I'm not going to say I'm famous or anything, of course, but I have appeared on many videos on people's For You pages. So I think that has made me more credible. If I put a survey out there, people are more willing to take it.
Awesome. So you have a deep connection with students at the UT San Antonio campus.
Yes, I believe so.
Where might they have seen you? I'm curious now.
So before I had this job, I worked at UTSA Strategic Communications, which is the overflow communications department of UT San Antonio. And I helped run the main channels, so the at UTSA platforms, and I was a content creator for them. So I got to go out into the community and do like mini mic videos or Q&As and put my face more out there in front of the student body.
Cool. What was the most fun about that? I'm curious.
I had a lot of freedom with that job. I got to choose what kind of topics I wanted. So my first video, I remember I did "Besides rain, what do you wish could fall from the sky?" It was a gloomy day outside, raining, misty, just dark, and we were trying to post something that day that we wanted to uplift the spirits from the weather that was going on. So that was what we decided.
That's awesome. That sounds like fun. And you're able to use that experience to think about your audience in ways that maybe were a little bit deeper, right?
Yes. It's not just about relaying information to students, so they already knew the weather was bad, but telling them it's rain, but what else could it be? A lot of them said money or tuition, but there's also some other students that said like blessings or like had a more different approach on it. So being in that position where I was interviewing them, even just for a small social media video and getting their insight, it seems silly, but it really helped me think of the mind of a student.
Yeah, and for all your communication, not just your podcast, but for your other jobs too, you can imagine that audience more clearly than with maybe a less three-dimensional survey answer form, right?
Yes.
So that wasn't a challenge. What advice would you give people who maybe don't have the 2,000 followers that are happen to be UTSA students, or the student experience of going out with the mic and doing the interview with the mic and getting to know their audience more personally? What would you say to them?
I would say there's certainly a UTSA community on Reddit. I've seen a lot of other students posting their surveys there, and as someone who's chronically online, I'm always on Reddit and willing to fill out surveys because I understand students have been in my position too. So I try and always help out where I can and know that that'll come back to me as well. For those without social media, I do think there is a little bit more of a struggle. I don't know exactly how they would combat that, but there's general posting boards around campus that could be an option, but I don't know the requirements for that.
Cool. So after you finished your persona, you moved on to the trailer. Can you tell us what kind of challenges you might have had with building your trailer, if you had any at all?
So my trailer, I made it in Canva. It's pretty easy tool and it's way faster for me who's more experienced in Canva than Adobe Express. I kind of based it off my trailer for one of my assignments from a previous class. So I had the intro music and I decided, since I'm a photographer as well, decided to pop in some of my photos here and there to show the scope of the student body and the scope of listeners that could be on this podcast. And I think that really added a nice touch that was unique from other podcasts I saw. And then just kind of dove more into what the podcast was about, my audience, my purpose, and some key takeaways that the listeners will have from each episode to kind of round it out.
So why did you go to the trouble of including images in a podcasting trailer where you didn't have that as a requirement?
I'm a very visual person as a photographer and even just a creative person. It'll draw me in more to have a visual aspect than not. If I preferred the video podcast because I tend to zone out if there's not something in front of me, which is a really bad thing on my attention span. But looking at something helps me remember it more. So if I'm looking at photos coming in or a visual video intro, I can associate that with the podcast, if that makes sense.
It does. And it makes me also think, where did she get her music whenever you were embedding? Where did you find music for your podcast?
The music I got was from Canva, I believe, one of their royalty-free options.
And moving on to the interview, how was that experience? Who did you choose to interview and why?
So I chose to interview one of my coworkers, Ivana. That was prior to knowing that I shouldn't record someone I already know. But she has a really interesting background. She's from Mexico. She's a first generation student coming here to UTSA. Right off the bat, she got pretty involved on the campus. So I thought, what a better time than for her to tell her story here. She's involved with LATSA, which is one of the larger student organizations on campus. And I just enjoy her story and what she had to offer.
What did you enjoy about it?
She's very real and relatable. She talks about the struggles that she has as a freshman here at UTSA, she struggled balancing school, work, trying to get involved, and I think that's a lot of things that many students struggle with. She also had those reservations about joining a student organization, but then finding the one that fit her perfectly, and I think other students to hear other students struggle makes it more relatable and something that they'll wanna come back and listen to.
Have you been involved in any student organizations?
Yes, so I'm currently involved in SOSA, which is the Spirit of San Antonio. It's the marching band on campus. It is the largest student-led organization, which many people don't know that. They think it's run by a director, someone, but we're actually just a team of students who help the marching band kind of the ins and outs of that, and I really enjoy it. Other than that, I'm a part of indoor percussion, which is a competitive ensemble here on campus. It consists of drummers and dancers and percussionists, and we travel around the United States and compete in competitions. And actually, this past season, we placed third in the world, which is a UTSA record. So it's a really great group to be a part of.
That's awesome. And so you had a lot of different people you could have chosen to do an interview. Did you interview other people too?
I did not. I only interviewed her because of time constraints. But looking back, I think it would have been interesting to record a couple more episodes and get a couple more insights from other people who might not have started here as a freshman, maybe a transfer student. They might need more resources. So I think that would have been an interesting take as well.
So you did the interview, you didn't have any trouble with that. There were no challenges. It went pretty smoothly and you had no problems.
No, there were challenges for sure. So I thought I had a pretty good microphone, a little DJI mic. However, after recording and going to process my video and my audio, somehow the file turned out to be 30 gigabytes of data. I don't know what happened. It was a process. I was getting really overwhelmed, but what helped me is going back in the modules. I think I can't remember the Adobe platform it was, but it helped me condense everything a little smaller and make it more manageable. And then when I went to export it, I had a similar issue, but learning about I think it's called high rate versus low rate exporting settings really helped me make my files much more manageable.
Good. And so you were recording like 8K. Like
It was crazy,
that sounds
yes.
like a huge file even for audio.
It was,
So
it
you were doing
was.
that was the video and the audio file though, right?
Yes, yes,
Okay. And you said 30 gigs, right?
yes. My computer was very mad at me.
Yeah. I can imagine. You're not the only one who struggled with high file sizes. In Adobe Premiere Pro, you can send things to Media Encoder. You can do a quick
Yes,
export.
that's what I use.
You use Media Encoder.
That's what I use to yeah.
Good. And doing a quicker export may not necessarily happen quicker if you are starting from a file size that's huge like that, because our computers have limitations, right?
Yes.
Cool.
And I think my problem with that one as well is I recorded on my phone, which is a little bit more limited than recording on a computer, which I can talk about later, but in my last episode, I decided to record on a computer, which made all the difference for me.
Tell us about that difference for people who are trying to decide whether they should record on their phone instead of their computer or vice versa.
For me, the phone was just so small, and when it comes to post-production things like Premiere Pro and editing and audio enhancement, it was so much easier when I already had all of that stuff on my computer in the same space, so I could make a folder and host everything there rather than getting them from my phone to my computer and worrying about all those kinds of little things.
That makes sense. So that was the interview. Anything else you wanted to share about the interview process that might be helpful for people who are about to do it?
As you mentioned, make sure your guests turn off your cell phones. And that could be the downside to recording with someone you know is you forget those little tiny housekeeping things. So moving forward, I would record multiple interviews maybe. One with someone I know for comfortability because it really helped me open up. And as I recorded, I got more comfortable with her, which that could be a good practice before you actually interview someone that you might have reached out to or just met.
Or someone who you're trying to network with professionally? Because a lot of people like to leverage the podcasting course to make those kind of connections that they'll need in their professional life.
Yes, for sure. I agree.
Okay, so that's the interview. Next, we had the actual episode cutting where you had solo speaking and the interview, and then we had that episode that had to be equal parts. Can you tell us if you had any challenges that you needed to overcome with that?
Yes. So I originally tried just to start talking. And while that might work for some people, it didn't work for me at all. I would say a bunch of filler words, have a bunch of stumbling, forget what I was going to say. And I just didn't really have a good structure of my solo episode. So after I realized after a few takes that was just not going well, I decided to take my transcript from my interview with Ivana and ask ChatGPT to help me go over all the main points. And in my solo part, I tried to hit each of those with my own perspective. So I used the interview transcript to help me draft a skeleton for my solo part.
I love this use case for AI because it's taking work that you've done and it's asking AI to do what it does best,
Yes.
reframing, taking it into a different way. And then you can take or leave or adjust those kinds of outputs. Did you find yourself adjusting the outputs a lot to create your script?
Yes, there were some discrepancies here and there, but adding my own personal touch, ChatGPT was just so transcript based, and I wanted to offer more insight to my audience based on what she said and how I feel. So I did have to edit, however, it was way easier to have that base there from AI.
Because you could add your personality and your insights, your personal insights.
Yes.
That's great. I think that's so important for working with AI too, is having those personal touches and that humanity added back into what might just have been a bullet point list of things from a transcript.
And importance of prompting, not just putting your transcript in there, it doesn't know what to do with that. I would tell it, I did an interview, I want to record a solo episode going with a skeleton based off of what she said, offering my own insights. So prompting kind of helped it give a closer output to what I was looking for rather than just spitting information at it.
Good. And you use ChatGPT, right? That was the AI you chose?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, so that's the solo and the interview assignment. Were there any other challenges? Any other challenges or things that you can think of that you wanted to talk about that assignment before we move on to the next one?
Just kind of navigating Premiere Pro. I had working knowledge of it, but it's definitely a learning curve if you've never experienced it before. And I would say review the modules, review YouTube videos. They're going to be your best friend and have grace with yourself because you're still learning in the process. And that's really important. And by the last episode, you'll wish you could have been this good from the start. So
Yeah, I
it
just say
takes time.
that the practice does improve things, believe it or not, right? It turns out
Yeah,
practice does improve competency skills. Who would have thought, right?
I know exactly.
So tell us about your other podcasts. These were both solo episodes that you're crafting from a script that you're writing. How did you attack that process? Because I know a lot of our students are intimidated by solo episodes.
I chose my solo episodes based off resources here at Campus Services, so I was already kind of familiar with them. I also used AI to help me prompt some scripts. So, my meal plan one, I told AI, here are some of our meal plan options on campus, dining options. Help me craft a script that will hit all these topics while still give me opportunities to offer my own insight. So it kind of gave me an introduction, a middle section, and a conclusion. And what I tried to keep the same from podcast episode 1 to the second one is the same conclusion, which I tried to tie that in from my trailer as well, offering my key takeaways, what they'll gain from listening to my podcast, and some sort of call to action. So having AI help me craft that and keep it consistent throughout my podcast was really helpful.
Excellent. And did you have any other challenges in these solo episodes, the visual emphasis one or the audio emphasis one?
The visual emphasis one, I tried to add little clip arts in there with a sound effect, and I don't think it worked how I hoped it would. It kind of sounded like a phone in the background, so I wish I would have not tried to incorporate too many elements in one emphasis, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. So you're working in Adobe Premiere Pro and you're dropping these sound effects in?
So for the first episode, this is when I was still working on the phone. I tried to use like an app called Instagram Edits, which is a short form video editing app, and it just didn't work well for me. And that's when I tried the sound effects with the clip art. But after that I realized this is just not working for me. For the audio emphasis, that's when I really decided I need to figure out Premiere Pro. Otherwise, this is not going to go super well.
Okay, so Instagram edits, don't use it for a 20-minute podcast.
Do not use it. It only has a 10-minute limit anyways, so it's not the good option.
Got it. Well, you had experience using all these other tools as a part of your job, as a part of your digital media influence major. So, did you use any other tools outside of Canva and Instagram edits?
I would say YouTube. If I needed something, I would get it from there. They have a lot of audio effects, which I did screen record some and import those. But other than that, Canva, Adobe Express here and there, if I wanted to put in a logo of some sort or an ending clip.
That's really valuable advice for people who are struggling. I know that a lot of people like to work just in Adobe Express or just in Adobe Premiere Pro, and they may not have the experiences with the Instagram edit or with Canva or these other kinds of apps that you had started out using. Do you have any advice for them on tool usage or anything else related to those episodes that you shot as solo?
Yeah, I would say while Instagram Edits isn't a good platform for making your episodes, it is great for those short form videos that you'll have later in the semester. They're vertical format, so they're perfect for if you're sharing your podcast to YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, or Facebook. So don't cross edits off your list, just explore it for a later assignment and focus your time on Premiere Pro. Canva is super great for crafting those intros and outros because they have a lot of options in there, whether you're focusing on visuals or transitions. And then Adobe Express is great if you want to create some sort of a logo for your brand or ending slides.
That's a great examples with tool usage right there that I think will help a lot of people. You mentioned the custom GPT social media project. Can you walk us through any challenges you had there and how you solved the problems of creating social media?
So, with already kind of a background of social media, I had an idea of what I wanted to do. I do wish I recorded my podcast a little differently because social media is a vertical format nowadays for most platforms. And my podcast was recorded horizontally with not really the option to crop it. So, I would take that into consideration for my other episodes. I'm not sure how, but if you have any tips, I would love to hear your tips actually.
Well, Adobe Express Clip Maker was one of the videos that I made for this semester for this class because
Okay.
you can create, you can resize existing landscape into portrait mode. And they have a clip maker which will use AI to examine your podcast and then just create the clips for you, which other places you have to pay for that. But since you're all Adobe Express faculty, everyone's an Adobe Express member. So because we're an Adobe Express campus, you're able to have access to that, which is nice.
I must have missed that one, and I made it so much harder on myself because I went through my episodes and clipped each part that I wanted, but I think that helped me choose exactly what I wanted to preview for my audience.
Way better
Sometimes
creative control, way more
yes.
control that way, and a lot of people did it that way too. They would use Adobe Premiere Pro to cut out those parts, and Adobe Premiere Pro has the AI reframe, which will reframe it to be that 16 by 9, 9 by 16 conversion.
Yeah. I wouldn't say I saw many issues then since I didn't do that, but on Premiere Pro, I definitely used the transcription and edited based off the text-based editing to help me find those sections in my podcast that I wanted to trim down for my short form videos.
Excellent, awesome. Well, let's see your media kit because I know a lot of people are thinking, show me what you got."
Yes, of course. Here is my media kit.
Connected Campus, podcast by Maddie Marroquin.
So I started off with this welcome page because I really like this picture of the UTSA campus. I actually found it on Adobe Express, so it was free to use. And I added this little filter to kind of give that vintage vibe. The title of my podcast comes from my purpose to connect students to more resources. So, connected campus to kind of foster that sense of community. I gave a little podcast overview, kind of talking about the purpose and mission of my podcast, as well as a little overview of the episodes and my unique proposition. What's unique from my podcast to other podcasts is that I offer personal insider perspective from a student and employee here at the university. I decided to link my podcast trailer so that students, before they jump into the Media Kit, can get a little better idea of what my podcast has to offer them.
Maddie, tell us how you did that podcast trailer. There were so many transitions, so many photos, and you even had that background track. Break it down for us.
So the whole thing was made in Canva. I started with a horizontal video kind of base and then added my elements on there. I got my colors from the UTSA branding page, which really helped tie in the connected campus purpose, which is to connect UTSA students, faculty, staff, and alumni. I took the photos myself, so incorporating that added a personal element to it. And then I incorporated a bunch of photos of myself to kind of establish credibility with my audience and show them that it's the real person behind the podcast and I have real experiences to offer them.
And I was thinking of your personal brand too. AI and personal branding, we talk about how important it is to show up like that.
Yes, so I did my opening clip as me interviewing the Northside superintendent, kind of establishing that I have a presence and that I have experience in the community to offer my audience. And then throughout the video, I offered a headshot of myself and then a little behind the scenes photo of me at my current past internship.
And what made you choose the vibe for the music?
I'm a really upbeat, bubbly, happy person. I wanted that vibe to be felt in my audience as soon as they start my podcast.
Picking the right music for the vibe can be something that people get caught up on a lot. Where did you find the music?
I found the audio in Canva. They offer free, royalty-free options for audio, and there's a bunch of different categories you can pick from. So I think mine was found in the pop category. And it just kind of, as soon as I heard it, I was like, this feels like me. So I went with it.
And you did the animation transitions for each of those pictures in Canva as well, I assume, right?
Yes. All my transitions were done in Canva, as well as the text.
And just like Adobe Express, it's a one button transition. It's selecting the transition when you're selecting the photo, and that's it, right?
Yes, and if you wanna go more in depth, you can adjust the timing of the transition, but which I did, but for beginners, it's a super easy click of a button.
Excellent. Show us more.
Perfect. So next, I decided to include my host bio. I went with a more professional glamour shot of myself because I really feel like that reflects my personality, especially with the sequined little blazer I have on. I talked a little bit about myself, that I'm a student here at UTSA, my major, my minor, as well as the background of my podcast. I added some insight into who I am outside of the podcast. So I talked about my role here at UTSA Campus Services, as well as my marketing job in Bernie, kind of showing students I'm well-rounded and have a lot of experience in a lot of different areas to offer them on my podcast. Then I talked about, again, my unique proposition factor, that I bring professional experiences, storytelling, and relatable energy since I'm talking student to potentially student, and sharing a little bit more about what I'm involved in at campus.
And having taken the personal branding class, you're able to talk about your pillars here too, and what you want to talk about for your personal brand, which happened to be the UTSA Campus Services pillar. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say more the like authentic side of my personal brand.
Tell me more.
That I'm here as a student and as a professional, but I'm going to offer you my real raw opinion about topics and be authentic for my audience, if that's.
Yeah, I love that. Give me an example. What do you mean by real, raw, authentic? What are you sharing that is real, raw, and authentic here?
So I could say for my episode about parking, I decided to make that one of my first few episodes because I know it's a very common struggle for students. And being a student myself, I have also struggled with parking. So offering students that I struggle too, and I can utilize these resources and so can you, rather than
There's
make
no problem
excuses.
here. You
Yeah,
don't have a parking
exactly.
problem on campuses, and this is every college campus in America for the most part, right?
Yes, and I emphasized in my podcast that while we are a commuter student, we do have a lot of parking options, so acknowledging their concerns while offering them another side.
That sounds like a public relations skill set, acknowledging a problem before offering a potential solution.
I did learn that from your class as well.
I like it when things connect. I like it when a plan comes together.
I do too. Great. Moving on, I added all 4 of my episodes. If I were to do this page differently, I would have added a small blurb about each episode, highlighting some of the key takeaways so that my audience could have a little more insight into what they're about to listen to. However, I chose to do this layout. My first episode, which was my interview with Ivana. Then I have my second episode, which was only a 10-minute episode about UTSA transportation. Then my dining episode, and lastly, my episode about finding your home, which talks about on and off campus housing options.
Of these, what was the most exciting and fun for you?
My most exciting was the finding your home one because I have lived in a different spot each year of being in college. So I felt like I really had a lot of perspective and insight to offer my audience.
As to the pros and cons of living spaces?
Yes, I would say just the different experiences that each one offers. My first year, I lived on campus, and that really gave me the opportunity to get involved. Whereas my second year, I moved into an off campus apartment and I felt a little more secluded because if I wanted to come to campus, I had to actually drive somewhere versus my first year just living there and walking. And then my third year, I moved back home with my parents. So going from the freedom of living by yourself to moving back home with your parents, I just think those 3 different experiences, I had a lot to offer my audience so they could take away their own takeaways from my experience.
I can imagine that being really valuable, especially for those folks who are making those transitions in housing. What about the foodies guide? I want to know where to eat. Drop some gems here for where to eat.
So everyone's favorite is Chick-fil-A. However, a line builds up every single day. So what I offered students in this episode was to use Grubhub. It's our mobile ordering app and it's free for all UTSA students, which is really great. UTSA Dining in collaboration offers a lot of discount codes throughout the year. So especially during finals week, we'll offer um, $3 off your order and things like that, which if you don't know about Grubhub, then you can't get those deals. So it was really good to say, while you love Chick-fil-A, also consider downloading this app.
It sounds like a great brand partnership idea too, doesn't it?
It does. And I didn't consider that when recording my podcast, but now that you say that, it would have been cool to incorporate some of my friends who work at UTSA Dining to get their take on that.
Excellent. Show us our next page.
Here I included my 3 mini clips in the Rowdy statue. This photo I found on Adobe Express as well, so it was free to use. And my mini clips, if I could do this page differently, I would title each of them. I think my mindset behind titling them teaser is that you click on them and you don't know what to expect, which I kind of like that idea because I wasn't placing a judgment on what I was about to see. It would just be like teaser 1, here it is.
So you created a curiosity gap. Let's see if you can share those. Excellent.
Thank you. That was my first teaser, and my kind of thought process behind that was to share a little bit about my stories, but include phrases or keywords like you definitely learn how to live with different people so that my audience might want to hear about those different people I had to live with and hear more about my experience.
Create that curiosity gap.
Yes, exactly.
And you had some storytelling there too about the becoming best friends after having some fear, right?
Yes, I tried to take what I learned from, I believe, the first or second module and incorporate those into my trailers.
In creating these, did you learn any new lessons? I mean, you've been creating social media for your job for a long time, and even before that, I'm sure.
I learned how to add captions actually. That was something I wasn't super familiar with, and this is where I used Instagram edits. They have the ability to create captions based on the transcription of the video, so it already had them in there for me. I maybe had to tweak a couple things here and there, but it was a super simple process.
Cool. And if you're using text-based editing in Adobe Premiere Pro, technically you can add captions in Adobe Premiere Pro too, but you chose not to because Instagram edits was probably easier for social media, right?
Yes.
Cool. All right. Show us more.
Here is where I started my analytics and metrics. I posted every single one of my videos and teasers to be public, so I would have those insights as soon as I post it, and I thought my videos did pretty well considering considering I optimized my SEO keywords and kept a consistent layout throughout each description. So I had 316 total views across all my episodes, which I was pretty shocked. I think that number was pretty high for the short time that I had my episodes up.
And just to
And a lot.
confirm for those watching who are thinking, wait a second, I only had 10. Yes, this is abnormal. And it might be because you already had a little bit of an audience on YouTube or no?
Yes, I was posting on YouTube's prior to this.
How did these videos compare to your others in terms of performance metrics?
I think they performed a lot better prior. My other videos were just for other classes or even for fun, and I didn't really understand how to optimize descriptions and titles for posting. So for this class, I really tried to get that title to be a nice headline and a hook, and then incorporate keywords in all of my descriptions about my podcast and what the listeners were about to hear.
That's great. A lot of people don't have as much luck with their podcast because it's a podcast on a visual platform like YouTube. Like they'll have more luck on an actual podcasting platform compared to YouTube. But what you experienced was the opposite. You had a little bit more success in part because you actually focused on the optimization of curiosity gaps in your titles, for example.
Yeah, I think it would have been interesting to see how it would have performed on a platform such as Spotify or Apple Podcasts. But since I did focus on a more visual side for mine, I felt like YouTube was my best option.
Show us more.
So my top performing episode was the Finding Your Path one, and this one was the last episode I recorded, and I think this one performed so well because my skills improved from my trailer all the way till then. I figured out how to enhance my audio. I recorded on my computer, which made editing a lot easier, and it was my longest video, so I think that could have also contributed to its success. I would say my only downside to this video was my camera had some sort of setting on where it would follow me around, and for me, that was a little distracting rewatching it, but it'd be interesting to see if that changed any of my metrics.
Excellent. I love hearing that you had a growth experience here, especially considering you had experience doing this before. You had experience talking to camera, you had experience interviewing, and to see that you actually had some progress from your first episodes to your last, that I hope inspires people to know that they can do that too.
I hope so too. I learned a lot from my first episode all the way till now. Even with prior experience, I found myself having a hard time talking to the camera, which is totally normal because it feels a little awkward at first and takes a while for you to warm up even just to yourself. So from my first episode to my last, I grew in confidence for sure. For my listener engagement, I didn't have a ton of likes or comments, and I think that's pretty normal considering this would be that could be hosted on a listening platform where people might just listen and scroll past or something. My one comment was from my interviewer, or interviewee, Ivana. She was thanking me for having her on the podcast, so I think that was a nice engagement that she added. For geographic reach, YouTube did not offer me a ton of insight, so I worked with what I had. So it just said the United States, which I figured that would be my largest viewing location, and it was correct. As for my audience overview, unfortunately, I didn't have enough information on YouTube either, so I pulled from my survey that I did at the beginning of the semester to try and gather what my audience could have or should have been had all of my analytics and data been there. Graduate students were the majority of my audience, which makes sense because I was targeting to UTSA students mainly. And the campus, of course, was UTSA because that is where my podcast focuses all of its resources on. And the age, it correlates directly with the undergraduate students.
It looks like you had more female listeners than male.
I did have more female than male. I don't have a reason why I think that, but that is pulled from my survey. So considering that my survey audience came from my social media platforms, I think that just could be maybe related to that in some way.
You have a breakdown
And
here.
then yeah, so YouTube actually offered me, I think, a lot of good information about my views. I had 6 total episodes, I believe that is, with my best performing being the housing teaser, getting 41 views.
This is one of the reasons we use YouTube is because it gives you this kind of data just from posting public. You get all of this extra layers of data.
Yes, and I would say I did struggle a little bit with how to read it and what the best way to navigate these analytics was, but I just took the most important ones, the main ones, which for me would be views, watch times, and impressions, just seeing how many people each of my videos reached and how my top performing posts could improve even from there.
Awesome.
Next, here's a little bit more about my channel overall in my videos. So 316 total views. I started this from September 11th, which was a few weeks into the semester, and then I ended right before my media kit was due. And September 25th, I don't think I have the date, but I posted, I guess, one of my episodes there.
You have 2 spikes there too.
My videos did pretty well considering that I had a somewhat small audience, but I think they reached people outside of my current following, if that makes sense.
That's always the goal.
And then I did have one testimonial from one of my coworkers and a student here at UTSA, Mia Coronado. She listened to a couple episodes and wanted to offer me some insight, and her takeaways were these episodes were so informative. I love how Maddie brought in involved students to highlight all the ways UTSA can benefit everyone on campus. I was also introduced to some of UTSA's resources, such as the Wellness Center and the Rec Center, which I wouldn't have known about before. And I'm really glad that she was able to offer this because it proves that the resources I offered is things that not everyone knows about. She had no idea that the Wellness Center was something paid for in her tuition, free for her. So by listening to my episode, she was able to learn about that.
Why do they keep that a secret, Maddie?
I wish I knew, and that's why I kinda started this podcast because I felt like resources can be so hard to find around here, and I want students to know that they're paying for these and that they should have access to all of them whenever they need. And at the time, I was not accepting any sponsorships, but I did want to possibly collaborate with other student organizations on campus. Since I am more of a social media person, I would love to post shorts and collaborate with possibly UTSA Dining or UTSA Rec Center and help spread those through social media rather than just the podcast.
Excellent. And here we have the non-glam, the more approachable Maddie as opposed to the glamour shop.
Yes, the more real me, I would say I'm not all glammed up and this is how I would look every single day, I guess, as well as my contact information and how you can reach me and connect with me on LinkedIn.
Maddie, what advice do you have having completed this course and created such a great media kit?
My advice for students who are going through this course and a similar process is to embrace learning. You're never going to master anything on the first try, and to always utilize your resources. While my podcasts emphasize using your resources, there's so many resources within each module and even outside the module with other classmates and resources like YouTube. So definitely don't be shy at checking other places out for what you may need.
And do you have any other parting wisdom for our students?
I would say classes like this that offer real experience, don't take them for granted. I was able to build my own podcast, build my personal brand, and add this to my portfolio. It shows a little bit more than just writing an essay would because you have real experience, and this actually counts for your resume and stuff, honestly.
And how did this fit into your personal brand that you want to continue after you leave at UTSA?
So I would say my personal brand, or at least my 3 top things, are a social media manager, content creator, and a photographer. So I would say this kind of combined all of them. I was able to manage my own podcast, my posting times, my descriptions and captions, which was the management side of it. The content creator side is I created each episode, I thought of the topics, drafted the scripts, and edited them. And then photographer side, I would say is more I made thumbnails, I made intro clips and outro clips. So that all kind of helped me enhance my experience into what I want to do professionally.
Being able to explain that to a potential employer or to a potential client and have work to show them is one of the reasons that we have courses like this.
Yes, and I think it's been so interesting considering UT San Antonio just started their own podcast. And when I listen to clips of those episodes, I'm like, wow, I've done this before. I know kind of the ins and outs of what they're doing to some extent.
You've seen behind the curtain quite literally.
Yes, I have.
Maddie, can you explain some of the different connections that you've made between classes?
Yeah, so I've taken so many different classes that span from so many different topics. And what I've learned is that everything is connected somehow. Whether that's my sports marketing class to my public relations class, I can find little things here and there that connect to them, such as how Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs has created a lot of PR opportunities for them within France and the United States, and a lot of sponsorships and partnerships, and how they utilize things like a podcast to help promote those. It's really cool to see everything I'm learning in real life.
I love that. And connecting your communication classes to your marketing courses and your public relations classes to the podcasting course and your branding classes to your job of social media management. What are some of the most exciting connections?
I
Okay.
would say the most important connections I've made are the ones with my professors, honestly. While I've made a lot of, like, class connections, I think your professors are there for you all the time and willing to help you. I've gotten a great recommendation from you that helped me win a scholarship, and I got a job because of a connection I made with one of my professors. So even through these online classes, the importance of fostering that relationship.
Awesome. Have you taken advantage of any of the career center things? I know you mentioned Handshake before.
Yes, so prior to getting my job, I decided to attend a career center resume building workshop, and that's kind of where I started. I had a resume from high school, but I wasn't sure about the formatting of it, how to add my new experiences. So I started there, and then I learned about Handshake, where they post a bunch of on campus jobs and even jobs not even related to UTSA, internships and such. And I made a profile and started applying there.
Now, what's your ideal job when you graduate?
Gosh, I'm kind of in the middle of things right now because I want my own business. I love the idea of working for myself and making my own schedule and the freedom that comes with that. However, I still have a lot to learn, so I think I'm going to start in another role, maybe a full-time job or explore some more internships to kind of grow my skills before I dive into my own business, which is where my personal brand comes in.
Your personal brand and your business would be centered around social media marketing?
Yes, management, kind of I'm a photographer on the side too, so I wanna incorporate that I'm, like, a marketing agency, which if I do this thing full time, I would have to outsource and hire some people because I can't do everything. As much as I wish I could, having Maddie Rose Media Agency or some sort of spin on that.
Excellent. If we had more than 8 weeks, we could have gotten into B2B sales and to hiring especially. But luckily, there's a lot of information out there and a lot of course kind of badges and certifications that you can take. Even through LinkedIn Learning, they have some things that could help you learn how to hire people better and things like that.
Yes, LinkedIn Learning, I've done a couple of courses on there, and it's been really great.
Cool. Have you done any through Coursera by chance?
They haven't. They do have a partnership, I believe, with UT Systems, so as I get more time between classes ending
Yeah.
and looking for a job, I certainly hope to explore more of those.
Cool. And have you done any of the Adobe Creative Skills Series badges?
I did one my freshman year. I can't remember what it was, but it was a great resource and it
Cool.
offered me a lot of
Yeah, those are the big 3, right? Adobe Creative Skills, Coursera, and LinkedIn Learning. And I think LinkedIn Learning is just the most accessible because it's through your LinkedIn account that you're connected through UTSA, so you have that access to that premium feature of LinkedIn Learning just by being a student.
yes, for sure.
Well, Maddie, thank you so much for taking the time to share your wisdom and your experiences in both podcasting and showing your work in the course. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor and I've loved sharing my experience with prospective students.
Awesome. Thank you.